Hello, can you hear me? All right, so we're gonna be playing my uh, training partner today, and we're gonna be challenging him on Lichess, and it's gonna be a rapid game, and it's gonna be. I think the last time we played each other, I played white pieces, so I think it's gonna be with the black pieces. And we're gonna try to give it our best. We're gonna be definitely trying to win with the black pieces. And he starts with pawn to e4, which is very interesting. I mean, he always plays pawn e4, so I don't know why I called it interesting. But here we go: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. Just the classic Italian. Oh, he's playing Rai Lopez. He usually plays the Italian. So let's just play. I think he just plays the exchange, yeah. Obviously, he can't take on d4 because of queen. He can't take on e5 because of queen d4. So this is the line I play: f6, just settling the pawn chain in an interesting way. And here my move usually is going to be uh, after h3. It's kind of tricky. He stopped bishop g4. That's what he's done. But if I remember the theory correctly, the knight goes to e7 and then to g6, and then tries to go to f4. But the first thing to do is to get the bishop out of the way. The question is, should I put the bishop on c5 or d6? So I'm going to take some time to figure this out because it's not a trivial decision. If I put it on d6, the disadvantage is going to be that it's going to block the d file for my queen. Um, so it's already like a very annoying position for black, but it's nothing to be scared about. Putting the bishop on c5 seems just right to me because I don't want the queen blocked in on d6. Uh, so if you can excuse me, I just need to get some tea. Uh, oops. Looks like my opponent is still thinking. My tea is warming up. And he castles. Okay, this looks like a standard setup. I think the knight on e7, knight on e7, knight on g6. Eventually, will be good enough. I'm not missing anything. After knight e7 castles, this is a usual setup in the exchange variation. We're going to be analyzing the game after this. Sure. So knight on c3 doesn't really have any of these squares, so it's not a very scary knight. It's just defending e4 for now. It can go to a4, but then I have bishop a7, and then the knight starts to look silly. So it's just, I think the knight should go to d2, and then to b3, then hit the bishop on c5. Or at least that's how I would play. Instead he goes for bishop e3, which to me, I'm not sure I like bishop e3 because now if I just play bishop a7, uh, after bishop a7, I don't see. I don't know, bishop a7. These positions from the exchange variation are not super trivial, and I definitely don't want to take on e3 because then he gets these breaks. So I have to figure a way out to play. So let's see, bishop a7. Maybe that's the downside of bishop to c. I can play bishop b4. Bishop b4, a3 though. I don't see the downside of bishop a7, although I'm losing some grip over the dark squares. Then his knight starts to get to a4 and then to c5. If he gets knight a4 in, I play b6, I believe. Let's just play bishop a7. Particularly not damaging the pawn structure further if I want to keep the bishop. And definitely not giving him these pawns on e3, d3 and e4. I think my tea should be ready. Let me be right back. Here we are. Rook into a7. I mean, I thought the pre moved that, so I'm very surprised that. Okay, I didn't see d4 in the position at all. Although I don't see how particularly d4 is helping my opponent. Uh, I should of course take. I think. Should I take? Um, yeah. Give me a second. My tea. It's an important component of my play. It's minty. If you're wondering what it is, I'm sure that I should take knight takes. And then I mean, I don't even have a good waiting move, which is the annoying part. Maybe I can change queens with c5. After c5, what happens? Let's see. Takes c5. I mean, it can't be too bad. And then my knight gets to c6 and then to e5. Yeah, if I play c5, um, and knight c6, I think I should be in good shape for the most part. My rook is a bit misplaced. If you're thinking that, that's definitely true. My rook is a bit misplaced, but after I get in b6 and bishop b7, I think I've done quite well for myself. If I just put the rook back on a8, it's not super attacking, but with the Ruy Lopez exchange, this is about as good a position as I could hope for, especially as black. As white, you gotta think why you would play this way as white. Knight f5, bishop takes f5. Maybe if he obviously his knight will be on f3 after this, so it's never getting to f5. So I can play b6, bishop b7 very safely. So this is an interesting point of the game where he puts this knight. If he puts it on b3, then okay. If he puts it on f3, I just go b6. The point is to play bishop b7. I'm not going to exchange queens on my turn. I'm not going to exchange queens on his terms. This knight is guarding all the entry points. So, frankly, it's a decent position for me. After bishop b7, I think bishop b7. If my rook was on a8, this is going to be a dream position. Okay, he's going to try some e5 shenanigans. But then bishop b7. Definitely bishop b7. If he plays e5, then I take the knight first. After he takes with queen, then I take with pawn. I just change queens and then, okay, bishop b7. I change queens and then take on e5, and then take on f3. If he plays e5 now, I just exchange queens first. And then I take on f3. And then after gf3, then I take on e5 and then rook e5. And then knight somewhere. Knight g6 should hit the rook with a tempo. Oh, then I even win the f3 pawn. Yeah, this is not such an easy position for white now. After bishop b7, because he just can't play e5 on e5 in peace. If he plays e5, queen takes queen, rook a takes queen, bishop takes f3, g takes f3, f takes e5. He exchanges the queens instead. In this move, I was just going to play rook a8. I think he forgot that I had rook a8, just saving everything. I mean, if you remember my dream from a few moves before, it was to get to something like this. So obviously you can't play here because of takes, and then takes on e5. Then he'll play rook takes, rook check. I see. He plays b3. I don't see the point of b3, honestly. If b3 is to play a4, I don't want to play a5 because it weakens the b5 square. So in this case, I can just wait. My knight's actually like perfectly positioned on e7, but I can just move it. It's guarding d5. That's kind of an important square for my knight. I think I can play king f7 with no consequences. I kind of hope he's blundering this pawn, because if I move knight g6, I think I can play knight g6, no? But knight g6 doesn't get me anywhere. Whereas this move, knight c6, then allows e5? No, knight c6, knight d5. Knight c6, knight d5, knight e5, knight takes e5, pawn takes e5. Nah, I don't buy it. King f7, just making the king closer to... The idea is that he doesn't have, he can't take with check here. It's it might prove important in the future, and the king on f7 is kind of weak to knight takes on e5 with check. Maybe I shouldn't have played this. If he plays e5, I can always take on f3 first. This, you have to feel that this weakens him considerably, because now I just take and then play the other rook over. I mean, this just doesn't do anything but give me the d file for free. Yeah, he has to play this move. I thought I had this tactic on this pawn. Let's now activate the knight. Now that knight d5 is no longer a threat, my knight can get into the game via f4. I probably should have played knight c6, knight d4. This is a grinding game. Frankly, it suits his style more than it suits mine. But I've kind of reconciled to the fact that you need to play these games, these Ruy Lopez exchange games, if you want to become really good at chess. Like, you kind of need to understand positionally the important squares and so on. Now, after knight e5, his d3 square is going to fall fast. It's going to fall, and it's going to fall pretty quickly. Knight f4 is a huge threat right now. And knight f4, if he just tries d4, then I think I should have enough after takes knight. No, I don't have takes knight e2. I thought I had takes knight e2, but the problem is that the c3 knight is guarding the e2 square. So I was calculating knight f4, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight e2 check, knight e2 check, with the point of if knight on d4 takes on e2, then I take with check. He goes back instead. I don't like this at all. He's getting too defensive too soon. I think now he's just allowing me knight e. Should I play knight e5 or should I play knight f4? I think knight e5 just dominates the board. It just controls the f3 square as well. Definitely this pawn is hit if this knight moves. Yeah, he's going to play f4 obviously. But f4 weakens this pawn even further. So I can just put the knight back and hit the f4 square. Probably knight f4 was slightly better. Definitely watch out for the move bishop takes d5, because the rook on the last rank is definitely weak. So this is pretty good play, but I think my knight has served its purpose on g6, so it's going to reroute to this square on c6. The idea is knight d4, and after knight d4, I kind of see a lot of trouble for my opponent. I think white is kind of overstretched with these pawns. I might live to regret these words in the future, but I think my pawn structure overall, I think I've played this game very well so far. Just slow positional build, giving white nothing, and slowly squeezing the position. This is unfortunately this is how Ruy Lopez exchange variations are played. The knight is frankly not doing anything here. I might have allowed e5. It looks like no knight d4. Definitely you shouldn't probably allow knight d4 as white. You probably should have played e5 in that one tempo. Trust me, he simply doesn't want this. Now b3 pawn's hanging. It's not even an option to not take. He can try the e5 break now, but I'm just gonna wait, frankly. I mean, I'm just gonna play rook d7 or something. I think his idea is d4, but then he just loses a pawn, I think. c3, I just make a draw. I mean, yeah, king f2, king e6. Knight 6 g5. Probably my rook getting caught up in this business is not so good. It's a very passive position for white, frankly. Sure, I mean, nothing changes for me. Rook d7. The knight's going nowhere. I mean, just keeping an eye on all my 7th rank squares. And frankly, nothing's changed. f5 is a bold move. I will give him that. That f5 is kind of a bold move. And after king e5, I'm threatening to take here. So he has to put the knight back on c3 and waste another move. I think I might be too passive here. I probably shouldn't be this passive. Okay, now he's blundered. You would think that he's blundered because of bishop takes d5. Definitely, no? Knight g3 check. Ah, king d6, and then he takes. Yeah, the g6 check is kind of unpleasant. Although, I can just take, no? With the king. And then I should watch out for forks. Let's go for it. Yeah, I've been looking at that tactic forever, but now he has knight g6, king takes f5, knight e7. I can't take the knight, but I'll be a pawn up. I'll be two pawns up actually, so I think I'll just take the knight. Or the knight f8. Knight f8. I need to be careful. Rook c5 maybe. Sorry, rook here. Then he can't take still, and I think that should be good enough. Two pawns to the good. Yeah, knight g6, king takes f5 is what I planned. Obviously, takes with check, which I didn't see, obviously. I see. I missed king takes with check. Yeah, this is pathetic. He's going to defeat me now. He's going to be two pawns for the knight. Yeah, this is resignable. Probably bishop d5 didn't work. I saw knight g6 and I just didn't. I missed this move. That was terrible. We'll see if he has time for a rematch. He does actually. Okay. This position I think I can play pawn e4, no? If he plays b5, I have a4. And we get into all sorts of Slav theory. I think the b4 the move is e5, if I'm not wrong. And he takes, I take. Takes on b2, I don't know. It's a difficult ending to calculate. Yeah, I'm kind of irritated at the way I lost the last game. I mean, yeah, bishop b4 takes, and e5, I think. I think it's just take. He's probably going to play takes on c3, takes on e4, or something. e5, knight e4, rook c1 is standard theory. Yeah, knight d5 is annoying because of the bishop being hit. So you just go bishop d2. It's nothing to be worried about. Now I'm threatening to take on b5. So he has to probably take on c3 first. I think there's a neat trick with bishop takes c4, queen a4 check. So I'm calculating takes, bishop a5, and bishop takes c4. The idea that if after bc4 I have queen a4 check and then pick up material. Yeah, it should be good enough for at least a pawn. Yeah, knight c6 I think is a massive mistake. It blunders the pawn on b5 to start with, which let's say is not ideal. And then it allows knight d6 check. Queen d2, knight b4, knight d6. I would definitely take white in the position there. Shouldn't have probably allowed. I think I'll just be a clean pawn up after bishop takes c4. Bishop d2, queen d2. I think he put one of his knights on b4. Doesn't matter which one, I think. Yeah, bishop c4. And then castles. I think I'm a pawn up at this point. These positions, queen's gambit positions, obviously I'm going to take one of the knights because I don't want this annoying move knight b4. The question is whether I can put my knight on d6 instead of giving away. First of all, the a7 pawn is also like weak if he moves knight b4. But I'm going to castle first, like a good human being would. I think I should just castle. Let's just castle. I mean, like, you can't lose castling. Plays a5. Not a fan of the move. The reason is if I play d5 now, he takes. I see, knight takes d5. Definitely not ideal. I think we can play rook fd1 and then d5. The point being, well, there will be some point to it. Rook fd1 just feels right to play this move d5, and then yeah, knight on d6 can always strengthen my case for playing pawn d5. It should at some point allow me to play rook takes a5. Sorry, queen takes a5. Pardon me. Queen takes a5 is still not good enough because then I'll be giving a queen for a rook and a knight, which of course we all know isn't good. I think here bishop a6 is not the worst move in the world. It's a really annoying move to face because this kind of discourages knight d6 instantly, because then he's going to take on. He's playing f6, of which I'm not sure, because now I just take and then play knight d6. Oh, he doesn't want me to play knight d6, but if I just play knight d6 now, he's going to take, and then I take with a pawn, and then he exchanges queens, and that does nothing. Although I have bishop e6 check, king e6, no. Just somehow I want to play this move, pawn d5. Can I play d5 here? d5, ed, bishop d5, knight d5, queen d5 check, queen d5, rook d5. And then I'm going to rook there, which is kind of useless. No. Doesn't seem to work. d5. I could just ignore and push the pawn to b3 and solidify my bishop on c4. Or I can play knight d6. Knight d6. The problem is he's going to take on e5. He's going to take on e5, and then I take on e5, and the knight sits there. I don't see a downside to knight e5. I mean, like, if you can play knight d6, you should always play knight d6. This knight will be a thorn in his flesh, and the e6 pawn will eventually be won after knight d4 or something. I don't even know what took me so long to make this decision, because I was contemplating the beauty of the move, pawn to e5. So I need to be careful about my e5 pawn overall. It's probably the only thing I need to be worried about in this position. So the moment my knight leaves f3, and I'm I'm planning to play knight d4 with pressure on e6. Bishop on c4 and knight on d4 will then hit. Yeah, knight d6. Knight d6 is a good move. I think so, at least. I see a huge fork population after knight d4. If he takes, then the knight on b4 starts to have some jitters, to put it politely. I definitely can have some tactics with queen e3 and maybe even queen to a light square, queen e2 maybe? Or queen c2 would have been disastrous, obviously. Bishop e6. I'd really love to snap that pawn on e6 off. But at the moment it's actually helping me because it's not allowing rook e8 or putting pressure on e5. So knight d4. I'm looking at knight d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. But for that I need to know what move he'll make now. Bishop a6 seems a reasonable move for white in this, for black in this position, but in fact it might not be so good because I just take and play queen e2, or just play queen e2 straight away. This is proving to be a very grinding game. Grinding couple of games, I should say. I need to look at some news regarding something very important to me. He's wasting a lot of time here. Whoa. Got a bunch of messages. I really don't like the fact that he's burning up. Okay, he's calculated rook takes f3, which I can't lie, I don't think it works. Unless I'm missing something with queen g5, which I don't see straight away. I think it's a very desperate sacrifice. I'm going to take straight away, not even calculate, because now I definitely have... Okay. Okay, he's coming here. But after bishop e2, what do? Bishop e2 simply saves pretty much everything about the position is saved by bishop e2, I think. As I said, I don't trust in the sacrifice because I have knight e4 next and knight g3, and then you have nothing, honestly. Bishop e2 is the sort of move that, especially before playing an exchange sacrifice like this, if you cannot transfer your queen in one move to the g file, in which case here g file is guarded by my queen, then I'm going to have knight e4. If I have knight e4, I win the game. It's as simple as that. If I have knight e4, it's over. Because if you move your queen, I'm just going to give a check and exchange the queens. And then your bishop is stuck here looking ridiculous. On top of that, I'm going to have my knight on g3 guarding everything. Yeah, this is definitely winning for me now. I just need to focus. He's given me the game, but you know how a winning position is still an art. I mean, I did look at rook takes f3 when I played e5. When he played f6 and took here, I looked at rook takes f3. And I didn't see bishop e2, but I just couldn't... When I saw rook takes f3 here, obviously the first move you calculate is queen g5 the moment the g5 square is covered. you're going to be like, okay, it's probably okay. Because you always have that one tempo to get the defensive piece around. Or even if not the defensive piece, I can always play king h1 and rook g1. And he doesn't have any bishop staring down the h2 pawn. Automatically, that these squares are all safe. So yeah, queen h4 is a scary move here, is what you think. But then I have knight e4. After knight e4, I cannot see how you continue the pressure on f3, especially with the bishop on e2 guarding the f3 pawn. Bishop a6, I'm just going to play knight e4. Knight e4, he takes on e2, then I take with check. If he does, okay, let me calculate knight e4 here. Knight e4, right? He can start with queen takes queen, then it's just rook takes queen. Yeah, knight e4 just wins now. Because everything gets taken with check. He can play queen g5, sure. No, he can't even play queen g5 check. I mean, come on, wait, still knight e4? Queen e3 and the one move threat. Thing is, he can't take here because of rook takes. If he doesn't do anything, I'm just going to grab on. I think now bishop a6 maybe. In which case, yeah, bishop a6. I take if he takes with knight. I just play knight e4. Queen takes knight is not even an option, obviously. Yeah, bishop takes is the only move. In which case I grab the knight, no? This is resignable. Yeah. The tactics don't work after rook takes f3. I mean, that was pretty obvious.